I think that we always loved each other a lot, but it would get so obscured by what we were doing and the bad feeling that we get ourselves in, that we started believing in the bad feeling and thinking that maybe we didn't really love each other. But I think that we always, even in our worst moments, understood that we really loved each other, we just didn't know how to get there. And as a result of what we learned and what we understood, we really were able to find our love for each other and know how to get there and know how to live in it. So we had ultimate confidence that even if we get caught up and our love would get obscured, that it was always there to be found. And I think that is what we started teaching couples when we started working with couples, is that, look, if you love each other, it's there. You've just gotten obscured, and you're too caught up in the obscurities, and you're getting fooled by them. And if you, like George said, if you start to understand that obscurities is just temporary experience of thought and feeling, and you start to, clue in to that, it's like the sky's clear, the cloud's clear, and you start going, oh, there's our love, it's always been there. And so Georgie and I have the ultimate confidence in finding our feeling, and finding our love, in being in it together. Even if it doesn't show up for days, we know it, at some point it's going to show up and it's going to feel really good and strong. And we just have to wait for it sometimes. And we don't care, we don't mind waiting for that feeling to show up. And the more confidence, the more it shows up. More faith you have in it, and the less attention you give to the obscurity, the more you live in that feeling. And the more you appreciate it, and the more you dwell in it, it's just lovely. And so you don't care that much if you get lost, because you always know you're going to get found. Like, one of my frailties is I get impatient. I just get impatient. And I get impatient with him. And because he will lose things and leave things, and then I have to wait for him. Okay? And then I can get this feeling of impatient builds, and I lose my love. Because I'm in this intense feeling of, he did it again. He left his keys, he lost his iPhone, we have to drive back to the house because he forgot his water bottle or his whatever. And so there's this back and forth things, and my impatience can just get, okay? Now and then I'm going to talk about before. Before I understood about love and obscurity, I would think about that a lot. I would think about, this is a real problem. He's constantly doing this. What's wrong with him? Maybe I shouldn't be with him. This is really unfair. I know I'm impatient, but it's really not me. It's really him, because he does all these things. And I could get all kinds of people to agree with me about how he puts me out. You see, and I'm building obscurity, and I'm moving away from my feeling. Now, me now is, that doesn't sound right. The way I am now, okay, for the most part, is I will start to build these feelings of impatience. But then at some point I realize, what am I doing? Of course he's that way. Of course he's that way. Am I going to let that get in the way of my feeling for him? And then it just falls away. The clouds part. The sun comes out, and I feel great about him, in spite of the fact that I'm impatient and he loses things. So I don't build it into this problem that I think about that obscures my feeling. It's that simple. But when you start adding up all the things that people think about with regard to their mate, you can understand how they can create such a cloudy day. And then they can create it for a long time, and then they forget that there's a sun. And then what we would do when we used to work with couples, we'd remind them of the sun. And we'd say, this is a cloud, and your clouds are really thick because you're just thinking into all of everything that's wrong. I mean, why wouldn't you want to be in a feeling of love?
Like Linda has, gets impatient with my losing things and everything, which I totally understand.
Particularly my things.
Yeah, I'll get annoyed with her because she gets impatient and she will demand things like, gotta come in here right away, bring me this, you gotta do that. And that used to be an irritant that I used to think about a lot. And I used to think about how disrespectful she was towards me, that she would think she could order me around and tell me to do things. And the more I thought about it, the more insulted I was by it. You see? So it took on a huge meaning. See? Now, I've had that experience in the last week. So that experience still happens for me, and when I'm in it, it's like, that's just what it's like. I feel like, yeah, I'm not being treated fairly in this relationship. Now, when I'm feeling that way, I know that it's a lie in the sense that I feel the love for her, and that's much smaller than the love for her, you might say. So I see it as a temporary eclipse or a temporary cloud, and because I can see beyond it, it goes away on its own. Okay. Now, after it goes away, I feel warmly towards the same things that were irritating. So I feel warmly that she sits in her chair and says, close that door. Why is that door open? Or, turn out that light. It makes her kind of a character, an interesting character.
See, I thought that the idea would be to change the other person the way you wanted them to be. Like, so I would get rid of George's, his thing about losing things and keeping me waiting, so I wouldn't have to be impatient, And then he would change me and to be less demanding about things that, like turning off lights and closing doors and stuff that have to do with conserving energy, right? So, and then I realized that that's just not going to happen. It's just not a good use of time and energy to try to change another person. What matters is you get over yourself about what you find annoying or irritating about the other person. You want to get over it. And that's the point, is just get over it. It's not about fixing your mate. It's about getting over your thinking about it, about them. So it's about me getting over my impatience. And about George getting over whatever he needs to get over with regard to his thinking about me. So it's a whole different idea, because I thought the idea was, I fix him, he'd fix me. That doesn't work too good. But the understanding of getting over yourself works great.
Way back in the day, I kind of bought the Hollywood notion of marital bliss, and just really appreciate the other person, and you have these really high moments and this deep love, and you're looking into each other's eyes. But more common I'm going to say more important, is the everyday little quirks and, differences that people have with each other that become a source of fondness, so that a little bit goes a long way, so that when you're looking out, like when you look at a tree, you see the knots and you see the individuality of the tree, you appreciate what you're seeing, and that's the way it is with Linda and I. A lot of the quirks that she has and the differences between us, I just love that. I wouldn't want that to change. It's so sweet. It allows me to see her essence and to see how she's her own person and thinks for herself, and she's different. And the differences have been a growing source of fondness rather than a growing source of irritation. Now that matters. If you grow 1% more fond of someone every day, it's very different than growing 1% more irritated with them.
In years ago, I would remember my grandparents talking fondly about frailty. Right? How unusual is that nowadays? People don't use fond and frailty together. It's all about getting rid of frailty. And I think that's beautiful. And I think that's a new vision and a new understanding, an old vision that should become back into style, where people see the frailties of character fondly rather than as a problem.
And I'll tell you, like, our daughter Erica, when I'm with her and Tim, they've taken it to a whole other level, because Tim is very strongly entertained by all the craziness that Erica displays, all her habits and all her frailties. He actually, he laughs about them, he enjoys them, and he'll talk about them right in front of her, and they'll both get a kick out of it. Mm-hmm. It's like the frailties have become an asset. I mean, they're not just, they're okay, or they make me feel warm inside. They've actually become a positive contributor to her relationship. Now, to me, that's a whole nother level of understanding the nature of the human experience and the nature of human relationships. I think that was an eye-opener to me. I thought it was just great. And to be honest with you, it's changed me in that regard. I'm looking towards enjoying things that
you didn't enjoy.
That I didn't used to enjoy. That used to be a problem. I'll give you an example of this. Erica and Tim were over. We were having a little family gathering, and Tim says, I'd love your opinion on this. He said, I usually do the wash in the house. Erica needed something from that was in the dryer. She goes down and she brings up like 2 socks and a blouse, and she leaves everything in the dryer. Now, I'm thinking she should bring everything up. But the thing I noticed about Tim is he was getting a kick out of it. He was enjoying telling this story, you see, and he was intrigued at what we would say, So we had our comments. Well, maybe she could get a basket. And the more we talked about it, the funnier it was to him, and we felt this tremendous fondness, not only coming from him, but we felt a fondness for the humanness of it all. How perplexing this was to Tim, that someone would just bring up a sock, and how much sense it made to Erica. And when they talked about the background behind it, Erica said, well, I've got to think of this and that. And Tim says, yeah, but you could have done this and that. It just showed how people can just think in their own personal way and get way out there on the boondocks. I mean, it all makes sense to them. And it just created this tremendous sense of humanness and kindred spirits and bonds and how we're all alike. And it was so easy to see yourself in this. And it made the family feel so light and the love. It was just a beautiful, you might say, a bonding kind of thing out of something that is just as ordinary as crabgrass. Now, if you can just step back and think, if the ordinary things that happen between people becomes a source of fondness, you can see how rich a relationship would be. You don't have to wait for those high moments, when you're standing on the mountaintop and the sunrise is coming up and you're arm in arm. You have those, but those become frosting on the cake. The real cake itself is appreciating the humanness of the other person by being in their presence and seeing them through understanding and through a clear mind.